So I have to be particularly careful about these things, and that off season allows my body to reset and recover.
This is cope. It doesn't allow your body to reset and recover. And most importantly, and that's even more important than the steroids in my mind, perhaps I'm wrong, is to stop being so fat. Coach Greg, in today's video, the world's strongest man, he wants to die. Well, not really, but his actions say differently. He released a video and it's called World's Strongest Man PD Off-Season Cycle. As you know, the world's strongest men, powerlifters, strongmen, bodybuilders, basically everyone is on abusive doses of steroids. And that, combined with a family history of heart disease, different things that you're doing, being morbidly obese, of which Mitchell Hooper, he actually is, these all add up to no good.
I think it's important for me to be honest with you guys about what it takes to be at the top level, the downsides, the upsides, and some of the considerations.
He's very transparent. He's telling us exactly what he's doing. I have no reason to doubt him. And he's explaining the downsides of being the world's strongest man. The downside is he's going to die. Obviously not today. Well, it could be today, but probably not. But in a near future.
My doses of everything have to come down because taking super physiological levels of performance enhancements to be able to accomplish things that you can't do naturally, it takes a toll on your liver, on your kidneys, and on your heart.
And so he's already showed us his previous cycle of which he was taking, for example, 50 milligrams of Halo each and every day, 100 milligrams of Anadrol, testosterone, mastrone, a list of everything. If he were in fact to do that year round, his body would shut down even sooner. And so what he's doing is he's reducing the doses. He's making them lower so that his body can recover, it can heal, it's not going to do that, and so that he can blast yet again. And so bodybuilders, powerlifters, even myself, we used to do these things thinking, well, if we only blast for a short period of time and then we take a break, that our bodies will be back to normal to be able to handle it and we can live a long and healthy life. But that would be like saying, I'll just get really drunk on Friday and Saturday, I'll drink a 2-4, whatever, and then I'll recover the rest of the week and no problem could ever happen. Well, that is not how it works. Alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen. It can give you cancer. It can cause a whole bunch of different problems. And yeah, it's better than drinking a 2-4 every single day, but if you just do it on the weekends, it's still bad. In Mitchell's off season, he could in fact lower the doses to HRT levels. You know, with a doctor, they can get your blood work done. For example, he could pop into AlgRx, although he has his own clinic, and they can measure to make sure that you are taking an appropriate dose for your age, your weight, everything. Interested? Code Greg for your discount. And so you all remember Coach Mark Carroll. I did a video on this guy. He's the husband of Lauren Simpson, has a 2-year-old kid, had blasted steroids when he was younger. He's 37 years old right now, and he went to the hospital and made a video talking about his heart. Well, he states in his last video that he could die at any time of a stroke. And so this thrombus could shoot up to his carotid and up to his brain at any time. And that could essentially end him. And remember, it's not just genetics. It's not just eating sugar, of which some people have suggested. It's from blasting steroids. And so if this could happen to Coach Mark Carroll at only 37 years of age, imagine what could happen to Mitchell Hooper, who clearly has to blast to be the world's strongest man. And we already know, because he posted this in his video, remember, Mitchell is very open about this. He's sharing everything. He already has narrowing of his coronary arteries. And it gets worse. Please stay tuned for the rest of this video.
Personally, my family suffers with heart disease genetically. Both grandparents on my dad's side died before they were 55 because of complications with their heart.
55? I'm almost 55. I'm 50. I can't even imagine what that would be like, knowing that my genetics, that I didn't hit the lottery. Well, certainly hit the lottery for being the world's strongest man, perhaps the best genetics in the world for being a strength athlete and so on. But for living a long life, when your grandparents didn't make it to 55, it's not looking good.
So I have to be particularly careful about these things, and that off season allows my body to reset and recover.
This is cope. It doesn't allow your body to reset and recover. It's not like you can blast steroids for as long as you want, so long as you make it to set date, and then you stop, and then you go back to normal. Your body, your heart, it's not a pool. You can't just add in some shock and recover. Oh, let's add in some neutralizer. Let's make it back to normal. No, any little bit of damage, it compounds. And so what Mitchell Hooper, I do believe he's confusing, is acute disease versus chronic. With his heart, it's chronic, and your body doesn't just reset and go to normal. With something that's acute, like for example, if Mitchell Hooper got a cold, or if he got sick, or if he had perhaps an injury, your body, it wants to heal, and it will heal over time. With chronic illness, chronic disease, it continues to get worse. It compounds itself year after year. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to stop blasting steroids for 3 months and lower the doses and recover and get back to normal. When you're sick, you could say, hey, I'm going to rest in bed, take some Tylenol, whatever, and eventually your body gets back to normal. Heart disease, it doesn't work like that. And so all you can do is slow it down. And how would you do that? Well, of course, you would stop blasting steroids, you would stop competing in strongman, and you would only do HRT as prescribed by your doctor. And most importantly, and that's even more important than the steroids in my mind, perhaps I'm wrong, is to stop being so fat. Sorry, the truth hurts. And if you don't like the word fat, let's call him very obese. Not just obese, very obese, at least type 2 obesity. When you're fat, it makes your heart work stronger than ever before. Now, I know that Mitchell Hooper has a lot of muscle, but he also has a lot of fat. He's perhaps, let's call it 30% body fat. 30% body fat when you're well over 300 pounds is 100 pounds of fat. I weigh 186. If I had 100 pounds of fat, I would be 86 pounds. That's skinnier than many women who end up in hospital. Fat is an actual organ, and it causes the body to release hormones. And when you have too much of this fat, it causes several problems. For example, diabetes, various illnesses. And so by Mitchell having too much fat, it's causing other problems that are going to add to his current difficulties. And so when you combine being obese or fat with abusing steroids, it's a 1 + 1 = 5 major catastrophe.
But you cannot completely come off if you take higher levels, because it's going to result in extremely low testosterone levels and a clinical medical problem.
And so he's correct. If you come off of abusive levels of steroids, for example, you do like Coach Greg back when I was younger. And so, for example, if you were like Coach Greg, you would do a cycle blasting steroids, compete in a bodybuilding competition. After that, you would go off completely, take nothing, except, for example, HCG, Nova, Clomid, doing various PCTs, and you would stop and then go back on. When you do that, as I did, you feel like garbage. You feel like shit. Trust me. Sexy time, it's very difficult to get harder than last time. Back then, I did not have harder than last time. I did not have my HDLT supplement company. And I never even had Cialis. Remember, I'm 50. This is going back, way back in the day, back over 15 years ago. And so what oftentimes you can do, rather than going completely off, is to go on lower doses, HRT doses. For example, I'm on 140 milligrams of test right now. That allows me to feel normal, to have a normal sex drive, and to prevent the major crash following the cessation of using steroids.
So if I went from what I was taking before, which I've released in other videos, we'll pop up a little graphic here.
And so you can see, those are not low doses. Those are clearly abusive doses of steroids. In particular, shocking to me is the oral 50 milligrams of Halo combined with 100 milligrams of Anadrol. That is a lot. But he's going to stop all of this to only do one thing.
And I'll show this graph here. Over time, our testosterone levels are declining rapidly.
Many people have talked about how testosterone levels are getting lower as we get older. He's showing a graph here, and in the last 50 years, testosterone levels at all age groups have dropped by almost 200 nanograms per deciliter. It's not as dramatic as some people trying to make it look like, that we perhaps had been at 1,500 and we're now at 500. But it is down a little bit. And so many people have speculated the reason why testosterone levels are now lower than they were, for example, 50 years ago, that perhaps it's pollution, perhaps it's plastics, but I have a different theory. We're lazy pieces of shit. We're obese, we're fat, we play video games all day, we're playing at the computer, we're scrolling. 40% of the population is overweight and or obese. The average woman, 5'3.5", weighs 171.6 pounds. Are you kidding me? Think of it. And so are you in fact surprised that testosterone levels are now lower? I'm surprised they're not even lower than they are. Think of it, like really think. Look around right now. Who's around? Is your wife, girlfriend, mom, dad, sister, friends, are they not fat? Do they actually exercise? And so just because you have lower levels of testosterone right now doesn't mean you need to go over to AlgRx or to Enhanced Games or whatever. Have you ever thought that the reason that you have low levels of testosterone is because you're not doing cardio, you're not eating healthy, you're not exercising in the gym, and that you shouldn't be just given a prescription in order to fix a problem that resulted from something you didn't do, namely exercise and eat a healthy diet? Now, granted, there are some people that need medications and so on, and you can go to AlgRx, you can go with Mitchell's company as well, but for the most part, try to do it on your own first. And so there's so many benefits to losing weight, getting in shape, joining the gym, mental, physical, everything. And there's so many things that can help. Of course, you can get a GLP from HDLT supplements. You've heard of the Turk Builder Max and Turk Platinum. And if that isn't enough, you can, yes, go to AlgRx and you can get various GLPs to get rid of the food noise, the cravings, but you still got to work. You still got to go to the gym. You still got to lift weights. You still got to do cardio because your heart is the most important muscle in the human body. And so please work on everything.
I'm taking 250 milligrams of testosterone. This will bring my testosterone down to normal ranges and my body can have that reset that it needs.
Does anyone believe that? He's taking 250 milligrams of test a week and it's going to get his testosterone levels down to normal ranges. By normal, he means physiological. For example, somewhere between 350 and 900 nanograms per deciliter. Most people are using somewhere between 80 and 120 milligrams of test a week. I'm prescribed 140, and that is higher than most people need to be normal. And so at 250 milligrams, it is possible, for example, maybe 1 in 10,000 people need a dose that high to be normal. But I'm almost certain that this is still super physiological. It's still compounding the chronic issues with your heart. Even though his dose is at 250, it's still not low enough to cause no damages whatsoever. He's still well over 300 pounds. He's still morbidly obese. He's still eating too many calories. He's not dieting down to get to a healthy level of body fat. And so the damages of what he's doing are still compounding and will continue to do so until he stops. And by stops, I mean stops competing in strongman, stops trying to weigh well over 300 pounds, and stops using higher doses of HRT.
You can only get away with that for so long before you either have irreparable damage or your body isn't healthy enough to perform at the highest level.
And so Mitchell Hooper's explaining that eventually you'll get irreparable damages from using steroids. I'm here to say it's right away. On day one, the first time you use it, your blood pressure is going up. It's going to affect you right away. Now, it's not enough to visually see it on that day, but it's not as if it isn't happening. And so it's kind of like this. If I turn on the hose into my pool, I'm talking about pool because I got a pool. If I turn on the hose and I go out in a minute, I'd say it hasn't done anything. It hasn't added any water into my pool. Meanwhile, it's added perhaps 2 gallons, but I don't see it. If I leave it going on for several hours, I probably still won't see it. It's not enough. But after the end of the day, it's perhaps up an inch. Imagine doing that for a year. The pool is completely full, it's spilling over, and you have a leak in your house, and you're dead. These small damages, changes that you cannot see, they're accumulating, and it's going to affect you years later down the line.
And this is also why doing strongman for 20, 25 years, it's not really something that's a good idea if you're going to compete on a regular basis, because you do need to do these things to be able to compete.
Doing strongman for 1 year isn't a good idea. If we're talking about longevity, it isn't a good idea at all. And remember, I'm not being critical of his sport. The same exact thing can be applied to bodybuilding, to powerlifting, to whatever competition you're doing. We're using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs. Now, if you're natural, hey, by all means, do your strongman, compete. Bodybuilding, compete. But once you start abusing steroids, and by abuse, I mean anything above and beyond what your doctor's prescribing, it isn't good.
Although I will lose muscle mass over the next several weeks, and that sucks. Now, we always talk about steroids as it's a non-addictive compound, but you can get addicted to the results.
And so 100% correct. It's not actually addictive, but the feeling you get from being stronger, lifting a PR, being known as the largest man in the room, it is very hard to stop. For myself, the reason I was able to stop is because I transferred all my feelings into bodybuilding and I transferred it into cycling. So I tried to become a better cyclist, get improvements in cycling, and so I don't feel a lot of pressure that I wasn't as big as I once were. Now, without cycling, I believe I probably would still be blasting steroids in terms of bodybuilding because it's a very difficult addiction to overcome, to wanting to be your best self, your strongest self, to have those crazy pumps, to have people compliment you about your appearance. It's very addictive. And so thankfully for me, cycling was able to save me. And so perhaps cycling can do the same for Mitchell Hooper. And so perhaps in a couple years when he's done from strongman, he can retire from strongman and race Coach Greg on a bike.
And that I consider heavily is fertility. Taking exogenous supplements, taking testosterone will affect fertility in a negative way. And it's playing with fire if you want to have more kids.
Many people, or most people who use steroids, can still have kids. Oftentimes it's stated, you can't have kids if you use steroids. It's going to cause you to be infertile. I don't believe that to be true. Do you know how many IFBB pro bodybuilders have children? What I do believe is more problematic than the steroids is being morbidly obese. And so imagine you're 300 plus pounds, you're overweight, you're fat, you're eating too many calories, and you're using steroids on top of that. Now add two of these factors together, and that perhaps can cause some problems. And so if being fertile is so important to you, my advice would be to not be as fat and to not use steroids as well. For example, just using testosterone, high doses, not likely to cause you to be infertile, but using SARMs, high doses with no testosterone, more likely for you to be infertile. And so many people are going to think, oh, just because I'm not pinning, it's just a SARM. Well, that's safe, but testosterone is bad. It's in fact quite the opposite.
When I go back on and I'm ready to get back into competition season, that means that I will get benefits from the same dose I had before without needing to go more and more and more.
And so his plan is to go back to his former doses to get ready to compete yet again. He's saying, I won't need higher doses. My experience is that you do need higher doses. Once you've experienced a certain dose, when you go back to that exact same dose, it doesn't have the same effect. You need a little bit more to get the same effect. Mitchell is younger in his lifting career. He hasn't used steroids for as long as Coach Greg. And so I'm telling you that if you use the same cycle year after year, let's say you did 1,000 milligrams of test and then 250 in the off season, 1,000 milligrams of test, and repeat it back again every single year. The first time you do 1,000, you're going to say, oh my God, I can't believe the gains that I'm getting. The second time you do it, you're going to be underwhelmed. You're going to think, well, what is going on? You're then going to add in tren, you're going to add in other compounds. That is the way of using steroids. If you ask any bodybuilder, they'll explain to you how the first cycle was way better. And once they got older, once they used it for more years, they needed more to get the same results.
I think I took a little bit too much earlier this year, and that made me perform worse. I think it made me heavier and stronger, but it made me more inflamed, feeling less energetic and less powerful.
And so Mitchell is describing, I felt worse. I was using higher steroid cycles than ever before, but is it the steroid cycle or the fat? Is it his weight? When you're 320 pounds versus 340 pounds, you're going to be more difficult to move around. And so is it in fact the steroid doses that are causing the problem or the fact that he was eating too much? There are so many different factors. It's hard to pinpoint to just one. And so for Mitchell, I would suggest, why are we weighing so much?
The one organ that I do need to keep track of is my kidneys. Your liver bounces back really well. Your heart, as long as it's not chronic long-term abuse, is fine.
The same disease process for your kidneys is exactly what's going to be wrong with your heart. You can't say, yeah, my kidneys, I have to be careful of that, but my heart, no, not a big deal after all. You can't reverse coronary artery disease, but you can, in fact, slow it down. That is the best you can do.
We're not hiding it from middle-aged people. In fact, I'm promoting it to middle-aged people to go get checked and get medical intervention to see if this is something that could benefit your life.
Of course, you can go get your blood work done at AlgoRx. You can go to your doctor, but I want to list the most important things that you should get checked out. It's definitely not your testosterone. That is not the low-hanging fruit. I believe, personally, the number one thing you should be getting checked immediately is your blood pressure. Next, cholesterol, and A1C for your blood sugar. And so those are the top three things that you should be checking to have the greatest return on investment. And by that, I mean you can do something about it and add years to your life. And so Once you do that, you can then start worrying about things like your testosterone levels and everything else. Before you even go to them, have you in fact tried Ferula Max? Of course you haven't. It hasn't been released yet, but you want to see it being released because it's going to perhaps double, maybe even triple your testosterone. Not only that, this lowers cholesterol significantly. And so, do you want to be healthier? Do you want to feel better, to look better, all while being natural? Can you imagine stacking Ferula Max with Turk Builder Max to help you to build muscle with higher levels of testosterone at the same frickin' time using GO2 Max to improve your cardio? What a triple stack that would be. And so please get to the website and consider that Ferula Max is the greatest new supplement invention in decades, and you can only get it at HTLT Supplements, the company you can trust. And of course, as always, money back guarantee, $50 gift card if it doesn't meet or exceed your expectations. What else would you expect with HTLT Supplements? Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algo. Don't forget to go to Algorex. And while you're at the website, don't forget to pick up the cookbook. It's been one of the best sellers for years. And so please don't forget. There's 2 bloops. I want you to watch one. And after that, you can decide, do you want to hire Coach Greg? Do you want to sell my supplements into your stores? Or do you want to be an ambassador or a sponsored athlete? And if you do, you click the link for that as well. And until next time, I am out.